NBCLX.
Big picture of what we need to take from this is that humans are starting to change the climate and the environment, and it's actually killing some of the forms of life on the planet that we depend on. The plants that we eat, the crops that we eat, they also have temperature limits. So coral reefs are a warning to us that we're starting to change our climate in bad ways. Because of climate change, one of the aspects of that is the warming of the ocean. And this is starting to get to the point where not every year, but some summers, we get hot spells in the ocean that are sufficient to stress corals to the point that they bleach and then even sometimes die. Coral reefs are more sensitive than other ecosystems. They're kind of like the canary in the coal mine. And corals reefs are like that in terms of climate change. They're more delicate and they're starting to die off early. And we should not ignore this warning because as climate change becomes more severe, as the climate becomes warmer and the ocean's more acidic, other ecosystems like the fisheries that we get so much of our food from are going to eventually feel those same effects, and then we're going to be in much, much worse trouble. So we would essentially give nature a boost. I mean, natural selection's happening, but maybe not fast enough to ensure their survival. But maybe with people's help, we could accelerate this process and improve their chances of surviving.
What we're studying here in this lab is how can we help corals adapt more quickly in the face of climate change, keep them from bleaching, keep them from being stressed out by these conditions, and basically help find intervention strategies to increase their resilience in the face of these changes.
Happy Earth Day and welcome to Miami. I'm Tabitha Lipkin. And as you can probably see behind me, Miami's actually that way. We are on Rainbow Reef, which is about 2 miles off the coast of Miami. And we're here to talk about a place that we all call home, our planet Earth. We are going to dive in literally and figuratively and talk about conservation and how your actions do truly make a difference. Water is a building block of life. Did you know that 1 out of every 3 breaths that you take is sourced from the ocean? We have teamed up with the University of Miami's Rosenstiel School to take you live, yes, live underwater to talk about corals and how they affect your life and the planet's life cycle. But hey, you don't want to see me up here talking about it. Let's go ahead and get below the surface and dive in. Isn't this much better? Yes, let me be the first to welcome you live underwater from the bottom of the seafloor. This is Rainbow Reef. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this Earth Day. And we have so much to talk about when it comes to this planet and when it comes to coral reefs. But before I dive into all of that, I actually want to talk to you just briefly about a couple of things, because you're probably asking yourself, what goes into going live from the ocean floor? Well, as you might notice, we have a tether. Mine is yellow. This tether allows me to both hear our studio back in Dallas and talk to you guys on camera, as well as talk to Dalton Hesley, who is from the University of Miami's Rosenstiel School. Thanks for joining us, Dalton. You may also hear me say Anthony. Anthony is behind the camera right there. And back in the studios in Dallas is Sarah. So if you hear those things, that's kind of what's going on. This undertaking took many, many weeks and more lawyers and more people than we can count. And we are so excited to bring this to you because all of us are passionate about our oceans and ocean conservation. So without further ado, let's talk about what we came here to talk about, Dalton, and that is corals. First, for our audience, what are corals and why are they important?
It's a more complicated question than you think, but corals are animals, but they build the skeleton or reef structure that most people think of when they think of our reef. But in addition to that, corals have this tiny plant or algae living in their tissue. And that plant's really special because it gives coral their beautiful color, but it also gives coral most of the energy that they rely on to reproduce, to grow. So they're really an animal that builds rock that has a plant inside their tissue. So it's a really special organism.
That's awesome. So it looks like there are a lot of corals here, but in reality, this reef is kind of dead.
Yeah, so many people look at this reef and they see a colorful, complex living structure. But when I look at it, I can actually see there's very little coral living here right now. In fact, in South Florida, in the Miami area, only 3 to 5% of this ocean floor, this reef structure, is actually alive anymore. And that's because of a long list of things. But it's part of what we do to research and restore these populations at UM.
So why are the corals dying?
So at the global level, we're seeing climate change cause increasing ocean temperatures, increasing ocean acidity, increasing storm intensity. At the local level, we're seeing disease from human pressure and development, overfishing, and these things in combination have had a devastating impact on our coral reefs over the past 20, 30 years. And so that's why populations are at the point where we might lose them in our lifetime, not the next generation.
What's interesting is during the last large coral bleaching that happened, that was 2014, 2017, you and I are talking about this, 75% of the world's corals were affected, and 30 of them died off and didn't recover.
Yeah, so coral bleaching events are really alarming because they're caused from a stressful event like increased ocean temperatures. And so when the coral bleaches, it actually expels or releases that plant that's living in its tissue. And as you all remember, the coral relies on that plant for energy. And so the coral's still alive, but it's in trouble, and it needs conditions to subside for it to be able to recover. But in many cases, it's not able to. And so then you can lose huge swaths of coral reef in a matter of weeks. And so that's kind of like that mass bleaching event you were describing, where you lose a ton of coral in a short amount of time. And we don't have the time necessary for that reef to recover. And so it's so alarming.
What are some of the corals that we're seeing right here?
Yeah, so I'm happy to point them out, but it takes a keen eye. And so we can see a small Siderea coral right here.
Okay.
You can see a Porites asteroides coral right there. Right there. A lot of this is just algae and bare rock. And now this used to be covered by living coral. This was all built by living coral. But now I'm even struggling to find, a few colonies to point out because of how barren this reef has become.
Oh, I see. So Dalton, we actually asked our viewers to send us some questions, and we were going to answer them live.
Let's do it.
Under the sea. And so, in doing so, one of them was, how do we restore corals?
Yeah, so it's going to take a village. Coral scientists are continuously researching to better understand our reefs, our oceans, and have adapted a technique called coral restoration to actually rebuild them real time. But it's not going to be scientists alone that solve this problem. We're really going to need society to support us and then take it to themselves to actually put in better policies to protect them so that our research and restoration has a meaningful impact.
Another question that you guys sent us actually had to do with scuba diving, and it had to do with getting our younger generation excited and involved with the sport of scuba diving, or if we're talking about it, free diving as well. And if this isn't something that gets you excited about it, I don't know what will, because this is the only way that you really truly get to see a part of our planet that so few people do, with the exception, of course, of going live from the sea floor. But to see this for yourself and with your own eyes is truly incredible. We know more about outer space than we do about our oceans. And what better way to find out than to go scuba diving? And Dalton, our third question, pretty interesting. That one also had to do with what is one thing someone could do every day that could make a difference tomorrow?
Oh, there's so many things that you could do as soon as today to help our coral reefs and our oceans. You know, things like reducing single-use plastic that's consumed so much energy, so wasteful. Additionally, you can vote with your dollars. Think about only supporting sustainable brands or foods. And then last but certainly not least is to act more civically, to make sure that you're voicing these values and taking it to the polls.
That's so great. So, we don't want you to go anywhere because we are going to take a break. And after this break, we are going to take you to the 100 yards of hope over there. We are going to plant some corals live, and we're going to tell you about how you can become a citizen scientist and be planting corals here yourself. We'll be right back.
So what can you do to help our oceans? Well, one way, try and use less water. Kind of like how your mom used to say, hey, save some water for the whales while you were brushing your teeth. But really, using less water helps keep excess water or wastewater from running into the ocean.
NBCLX is celebrating Earth Day with an entire day filled with stories, news, and tips on living a greener life and healing the Earth. NBCLX. Learn, engage, repeat.
If you're the go-to friend, go-to son, or go-to mom, then you need your own go-to. Like GoTo Bank, the ultimate banking app. Easy to use and no monthly fees with direct deposit. Your go-to for security. Your money is FDIC insured. Your go-to for value with a free ATM network and 10 times the national average on your savings. You can even get paid up to 2 days early. GoTo Bank. It's mobile banking at its best. Open an account at gotobank.com.
We are KiwiCo, and we deliver hands-on STEM projects designed to inspire young innovators. Kids of all ages can explore science, engineering, art, and more. Get 30% off. Visit trykiwico.com. Must be 18 or older to log on.
It's so easy to sell on Poshmark. You just pick out your item, snap a couple of photos, and boom, it's up for sale. When I look at my old clothes now, I see dollar signs. Just this month, I've made a couple $100s on Poshmark just selling items out of my closet.
Buy and sell from home with the Poshmark app.
With me, folks.
Welcome back to NBCLX Live at the ocean floor. I'm Tabitha Lipkin, and we're doing something very exciting. This is the 100 Yards of Hope. I am joined by Dalton Hesley from the University of Miami's Rosenstiel School. Dalton, where are you? Oh, there you are. You're right behind me. He's getting the gear to show you how to plant corals yourself. Now, as you show us how to plant corals, the important thing is you are able to source some of the corals that could easily be replanted by just a couple of simple tools that I feel like are not that complicated.
It's a pretty special site. It took about 2 years to build, but it's something that you can do with just a little training.
Yeah.
And so that's why our coral restoration program at the University of Miami's Rosenstiel School designed a citizen science project called Rescue a Reef, where any individual, diver, or snorkeler could learn about this and actually play a part in our restoration.
I mean, just real quick, I want Anthony to pan around, show him a little bit, even just right here, of these incredible corals in the 100 Yards of Hope. They're looking really phenomenal. All right, Dalton, let's plant some corals.
Should we do it? Let's plant some coral. Okay, so essentially we have bare reef substrate here.
Yeah.
Mostly covered in algae, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is first clear an area that we can plant our coral. So we have all the tools necessary here. So we'll have you start.
You'll have me start.
Well, I guess I can plant one first to see.
Yeah. Why don't you want me to hold the bag?
Yeah, if you
I'll hold
that
the
for me.
tools.
So first,
A lot of
clear
orange
an
and green
area
in here.
that will fix the coral.
Okay.
So we just use a steel brush, clear away some of that sediment and algae, and then now we have to add the attachment point. We'll take a simple hammer, nail, and actually drive it into the open reef floor. You do a quick wiggle test,
Nice and
make sure
sturdy.
the nail's there, and then if you wouldn't mind a cable tie.
You'll notice the University of Miami colors.
You take your fragment. And then you just cinch it down.
Awesome.
And that's it. You have a newly outputted staghorn coral.
You like to double secure, don't you?
Oh, you gotta double secure. But that's it. That's how easy the process is. And so after 2 or 3 weeks, this coral will start to grow down onto the reef floor. After 2 or 3 months, it will start to grow over top the nail and the cable tie, laying down skeleton. And about a year later, this colony will be roughly the size of a basketball.
Oh,
And it will
a
have
basketball?
A basketball, yep. And it will have completely enveloped the nail and the cable tie, so you can't even tell that we were here. All right.
There we go. You cut off the excess plastic.
Exactly. Make sure to tuck those into the sleeve. And that's it. That's how you do it.
I'd love to plant one.
You ready for your time to shine?
Yeah, my time to shine.
All right, there you go.
As if this moment wasn't enough. Most excellent. Let's find a good spot. I want to plant my coral. Oh, it's right here.
It's like shopping around.
Right here?
Yeah, it looks good to me.
So I clear it off.
On the reef, where the coral has room to
And then
grow.
you brush your teeth. Then you clear it off some more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hammer and nail.
Okay. Does this technically make me a citizen scientist?
Oh, definitely.
Awesome.
Quick learner, too. And you'll do the wiggle test to make sure the nails sound.
Little later, a little more.
A little bit, okay.
That sound.
Okay, trade you. There's your coral.
An orange, please.
Orange it is.
All right. So like you said,
Yep, pre-loop it,
free loop.
and then
Oop, got a little bit of
that'll help you secure the
current coming in.
coral flux to that reef.
Luckily, I secured that so I can hold on to that.
And one thing I didn't get a chance to mention earlier, but this is staghorn coral, which is a threatened species, at risk of extinction. And so that's part of the reason we work with it. The other is that it's fast growing. So by fragmenting this coral, it accelerates the actual growth process. And so that's why you see that really big branching structure in such a short amount of time. So it ends up being an important contributor to reef structure, which protects our coastline, essential habitat for marine organisms, and all the other associated ecological benefits. So it's a great species for coral reef restoration.
Well, there you go.
All right, then
That
once
one's
you're done,
planted.
you'll
Thanks
cut
for
those
giving
two-
me the double orange, because you know I'm a Longhorn. And I think University of Miami is now my.
Well, I'm glad we got to represent the Canes and the Longhorns.
Go ahead. Cut those off. Oh, that wasn't very good. A little more.
Beautiful.
Is that okay?
that's that.
Perfect. Tuck those away. You don't want any more plastic in the ocean. And there you have it. Now you have 2 new sets of coral here in the 100 yards of hope. And Dalton, real quickly, before we have to take our next break, can you show us just a little bit of the 100 yards of hope?
Yeah, let's check it out. We're going this way. So this site is one of our more impressive sites because in addition to large-scale, dense restoration, meaning a lot of large, healthy staghorn coral, we also incorporated different types of coral. So there's elkhorn coral here, there's brain and star corals that we worked out at the site to really make it a diverse, complex reef, which is what you need for ecosystem restoration. In addition to that, we transplanted urchins, which is an important reef grazer, so that they could hopefully mow down all of this algae in the area. So what we did is we picked the best and brightest in coral restoration, brought those partners together for this 100 Yards of Hope project. And the results speak for themselves.
This is great. And you can see the yard markers too, which I found to be really interesting.
So this whole project came in celebration of the NFL's 100th season.
Yeah.
And the Super Bowl coming to Miami, Florida. And so we designed this site to look like a football field. So there are different yard lines that the corals themselves made up. So it's quite the visual when it's all said and done.
Absolutely. Dalton, thank you so much for taking the time to show us the 100 Yards of Hope. And friends at home, you're not going to want to go anywhere because while looking at corals is really cool, we do have to talk about an apex predator that needs our help now more than ever. Coming back, we're going diving with sharks.
Smile Direct Club.
3 miles.
New day, new choices. Choose faster.
4 miles.
Choose healthier. Choose Smile. Today, choose Smile. That costs up to 60% less than braces. Go from this to this. And start seeing results in as little as 60 days. Get started for free at SmileDirectClub.com.
I have a plan for retirement.
For college savings.
For investing.
I can see all of my accounts and my investments.
All my investments and more in one place.
I feel good about my finances.
Get free financial tools or talk to an advisor. Personal Capital.
Mack Weldon is reinventing men's basics, and it all starts with more comfortable underwear. With soft, breathable fabrics, waistbands that won't roll over, and legs that won't ride up. The best part? If you don't love your first pair, it's on us. Try a pair at MackWeldon.com.
While most people are afraid of sharks, they should probably be afraid for sharks. Globally, there are tens of millions of sharks that are killed every year.
This is a story about how an apex predator needs our help. Their population decline directly affects the many ecosystems of the ocean, and in turn affects the entire planet, including you at home. While I've been diving with sharks for years, Dr. Neil Hammerschlag has been studying them for 2 decades.
I'm the director of the University of Miami's Shark Research and Conservation Program. Here we do a lot of work looking at the behavior, the physiology, and ecology of sharks. Ultimately, we want to better understand how threats like climate change or overfishing or urbanization are going to impact the behavior and health of sharks, and in turn what that might mean for the ecosystem that depend on healthy shark populations. A lot of our work actually involves capturing sharks briefly and doing a workup on them. Essentially, we take measurements, we take biological samples, we also tag them, and then we release them to go pursue the rest of their life happily. From my experience spending thousands of hours diving with them in the water in their own environment, I can tell you they are not mindless killers. They are social, they are smart, they are curious. But it's also important to realize, they're not puppy dogs. They are predators, and therefore they deserve respect.
And humans have not been respecting the more than 500 different types of sharks found around the world.
They're often targeted for their fins to make shark fin soup, but also for their meat, for consumption, and their liver for oil used sometimes in cosmetics. And this is just not something that a lot of people are aware of, which is actually driving many populations of sharks to become threatened.
Cassandra Scott works with Shark Allies, a conservation group dedicated to restoring and conserving shark populations by improving shark conservation policies. She's been diving in South Florida for half a decade.
We've been seeing a lot more sharks with bullet holes in their heads, and it's been an issue with fishers around here thinking that there's too many sharks. And the issue runs a lot deeper than sharks just wanting to eat their fish. It could be ecosystems collapsing and them going for fishers' fish, which is an easier catch than having to go search down fish. But within dives, we can see 20 sharks and 3 of them will have bullet holes, and they just, within the past couple years, are just starting to get more and more of them, unfortunately. And we have seen a shark dead on the seafloor with a bullet hole in its head. Which continues misconceptions about sharks. Here are some facts on why their populations can be slow to rebound. Sharks can take decades to reach sexual maturity. Pregnancy averages between 9 to 12 months, and they can produce as few as 2 offspring. On top of all of that, they may not reproduce every year. Some species have a resting phase of 1 to 2 years. So what would the world be like without sharks? I think that's a simple answer. It would be a scary place without sharks, just because so many different species depend on them. They're the white blood cells of the ocean. They take out the disease, the dead, and the dying, so they keep a lot of the populations of other fish in check, so we really need them in our oceans. How does that directly affect you at home? Well, it's a chain reaction. Unstable ecosystems lead to unstable fish populations and reefs. Aquatic systems play a key role in the global carbon cycle, aka sharks have their own big role in stabilizing climate change. Plus, sharks are a part of ecotourism. They create jobs, and sharks have even helped in the development of technology like skin mimicking services that are used in the designs of drones and aircrafts. But there's still so much more being studied.
One thing I can tell you is that it's not always easy to understand what happens to an ecosystem when it loses a top predator. But I often think of it like a super fancy watch. You know, I'm not sure what's going to happen if I just go in and open it up and pull out a spring, but I can tell you it's probably not going to work as well.
Here's how you can help. Some simple things that you've probably heard of before, and maybe some that you haven't. Choose sustainable seafood. Reduce your plastic consumption. You've also got beach and ocean cleanups that do so much good, and you can work to get legislation passed that protects marine life, like creating marine protected areas or catch limits for fishing. You can also become a citizen scientist, or even a professional one too. Check out sharktagging.com for more information. Your actions do make a difference.
And we now know that human intervention can have very positive impacts. And one of the things that I'm very hopeful about is, despite the threats facing the oceans, there's never been, ever before, so many people committed to the oceans. There's never been so much awareness for ocean conservation issues. And there's never been as many regulations that have put in place to protect the oceans. And we are seeing signs of recovery, of rebound, of areas that are thriving following effective conservation and enforcement of protective measures.
It's so true. It is not all doom and gloom. Just as we've learned over the first 20-25 minutes right here. And Dalton, I have to thank you so much for taking the time to show us a little bit about your coral program. And of course, the University of Miami, the Rosa Steele School, taking the time to also talk to us about sharks. The most dangerous thing in the ocean right now, it's us. It's human beings. But we are also the most powerful thing because we can truly enact change. And guys, we have a whole lot more of this show to go. We cannot wait to show you what's happening on the West Coast. So don't go anywhere as we take this from Florida all the way to San Diego.
We're looking for a few not-so-good drivers. Had an accident? You're probably paying too much for car insurance, if you can afford it at all.
Yep.
Good to Go costs less. Visit goodtogo.com. Get a rate quote in under a minute. Goodtogo.com. It's fast, cheap, and easy.
Zero investing knowledge? Stash can help you become a smarter investor. You can start investing with as little as $5. Get Stash. Invest in yourself.
Kids grow so fast, and so it's hard for me to spend money on something when I know they might grow out of it in 6 months. But because of Poshmark, I'm able to buy and sell and keep their closets fresh.
Get $5 off your first order. Download the free Poshmark app now and use offer code LOVEPOSH.
Have you heard of nuts.com? It's the best kept secret of savvy snackers all over the country. Incredible nuts, dried fruits, organic snacks, and gluten-free treats. There's something for everyone to love, including free shipping with your first order.
Best pistachios ever.
Love the dried peaches.
White chocolate toffee cashews are awesome.
The holy grail of honey sesame sticks. The quality has made me a customer for life. With so much to love and free shipping with your first order, check out nuts.com.
NBCLX is celebrating Earth Day with an entire day filled with stories, news, and tips on living a greener life and healing the Earth. NBCLX. Learn, engage, repeat.
You're looking at the Gulf of Mexico, home of the largest dead zone in the U.S. What's a dead zone? I'm glad you asked. To get the answer, I talked with Stephen Thur at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, more commonly known as NOAA.
A dead zone is a place in the aquatic environment where very little life is present because there is little oxygen.
The size of the dead zone changes from year to year and can grow as large as Massachusetts.
Most organisms can survive moderate amounts of low oxygen water, but if it's too extensive or too severe, it will kill most organisms in that bottom water.
So what causes this thing? It's something so small, the naked eye can't even see it.
Our waters have microscopic organisms called algae that live in them naturally. They need sunlight and fertilizer and warm temperatures to grow. And so when we have an abundance of those three things, the algae grow a lot, and that can be a problem.
A problem that's killing marine life, and lots of it. But here's the thing, this isn't a completely random phenomenon. Humans are a big part of the problem. More specifically, farms, located hundreds of miles away.
In the center of our country, the Mississippi watershed, we are applying nutrients to our farm fields. We have large livestock operations. We put fertilizer down on our lawns each spring. The plants in the field don't use up all of the nutrients. That's what's running off into our waterways, eventually ending up offshore of Louisiana. The primary nutrients that we're concerned about are nitrogen and phosphorus. They're the two big building blocks that both our row crops need, but also algae love.
He's right. The U.S. Geological Survey just found that the highest total of nitrogen and phosphorus come from the country's Corn Belt. That includes Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and other parts of states that sit along the Mississippi River. That agricultural runoff finds its way to the Gulf of Mexico and creates a chain reaction of events that eventually leads to hypoxia, a fancy term for water with very little oxygen.
Just like we need oxygen to breathe, so do those critters, fish, crabs, clams, oysters, shrimp. And if you are one of those organisms and you have the ability to swim, you can generally swim to parts of the water body that have more oxygen. Organisms that can't swim very much, think of oysters, which are pretty much sessile. They're going to stay right there on the bottom. They can be killed.
Farmers need to understand that what is happening on their farm has several repercussions downstream. I am a fifth-generation farmer. My ancestors homesteaded here in the 1870s, and I'm very proud of that, and I'm proud to continue the legacy that they left for me and the next generations to come.
A legacy that's changing with time and keeps the environment in mind.
We are in a journey right now of transitioning the whole farm to organic. So we are doing this with zero inputs, no tillage, no inputs of any kind, and we're trying to work with a symbiotic relationship with Mother Nature. See, it's just amazing. See, look at that earthworm right there. We use zero inputs now. We have not applied any P or K, which is phosphorus or potassium, in 7 years on this farm. We've not applied any ag lime in 7 years, and we're now heading into year 3 where we've not applied any synthetic nitrogen. By eliminating the synthetic fertilizers, we've eliminated any chance of runoff of those synthetic fertilizers into the waterways, into the creeks, the rivers, the streams, and wind up then in the Gulf of Mexico.
Cover crops are like a sponge. So they absorb water, they absorb nutrients. When it comes to the filtering aspect, it brings nitrogen out, phosphorus out. So when the water does pass through, it is a cleaner product in the end than what it was before.
Brian works at the Illinois Department of Agriculture. He helped launch the state's Cover Crops Premium Discount Program in 2019.
The program fits right into our nutrient loss reduction strategy, just like we're sitting here talking about, is trying to shrink in the dead zone in the Gulf. So, and cover crops are one of the best conservation practices to get the job done the fastest. With the program, it is a $5 an acre discount to the farmer's crop insurance.
Over the past few years, several states have adopted similar programs to help reduce agricultural runoff. To fill the gaps for states that don't, organizations like the Midwest Cover Crops Council exist.
I'm very happy to talk about the Midwest Cover Crops Council. It's kind of like, a child.
Dr. Eileen Kladivko is one of the council's founders.
We started in 2006, and we started with 3 or 4 of us researchers in the Midwest who were researching cover crops, but there wasn't that much activity going on in cover crops in the mid-2000s. And we knew that cover crops could be very beneficial for water quality, which was the thing we were really talking about at the time, and for many other purposes.
So a cover crop is going to hold the soil in place, and that prevents erosion. And so we want to hold it in place, not only for the farmer's benefit to keep those nutrients in the field, but also, environmentally, we don't want those going downstream.
The soil is a leaky system. It does not have a pan on the bottom of it to catch everything that comes out. So what we need is living and growing plants, because when plants are growing, their roots are in the soil, they're taking up nutrients that would otherwise just be lost out the bottom.
Cover crops also help build soil health, ultimately producing high crop yields. But there are some reasons a lot of farmers still aren't planting them.
Yeah, so the first couple of years, we always like to tell them, you're not going to see something right out of the gate. This is something that takes a while to build.
It does cost you something to actually plant a cover crop, right? To buy the seed and to plant it. But you don't get an immediate economic benefit.
There's also difference in pest pressures. So we've got different diseases, different weeds, different insects that may impact different areas of the Midwest differently.
It's hard. It's harder than it would appear. Change is hard, but change is good. And it just requires that first small step, and just take baby steps, and then you will build confidence, and then it just becomes second nature.
But it isn't just the farmer's responsibility to help shrink the dead zone. It's on all of us.
Once the nutrients reach the Gulf, there's not much we can do to practically impact the size of the hypoxic zone that's going to result. And so from a societal standpoint, what we have to do is reduce the nutrients that end up in the Gulf.
That means watching how much fertilizer we put on our lawns, monitoring our sewage systems, even collecting stormwater. It may not seem like much, but every little bit helps, because you're helping the health of the lakes, streams, and rivers in your own backyard too.
We have a shared responsibility for the resources we have been gifted with in this country. And so if we can do a small part to help our shared environmental legacy, I think that's important in and of itself.
it's very important that we continue to strive to be better. We can never become complacent. It's what we're doing today is great, but there's always room for improvement, always.
I was warned against coming because the Armenian past of Turkey was a forbidden past.
Join in a journey of discovery, a search for Armenian culture lost. Watch The Hidden Map tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on NBCLX.
Smile Direct Club. These are Smile Direct Club aligners. They're laser cut for comfort to gently straighten teeth under a doctor's direction. They can turn a smile like this into a smile like this in as little as 4 to 6 months for less than $3 a day. So choose comfortable, choose fast, choose affordable, choose smile. Get started for free at SmileDirectClub.com.
Personal Capital wants to know, do you have a plan for your finances?
I have a plan for retirement.
For college savings.
For investing, I can see all of my accounts and my investments.
All my investments and more in one place.
I feel good about my finances. Finally.
Download the free Personal Capital app today. You can feel good about your finances, and Personal Capital is here to help. Visit personalcapital.com today.
Welcome back to the sunny beaches of Southern California. I am NBCLX storyteller Chase Kane. And here on the West Coast, climate change presents a unique set of challenges. Yes, sea level rise is accelerating, but the other factor here is coastal erosion, which means sometimes cliffs just quite literally collapse onto the beach. Now, scientists are working hard to engineer around things like this and offset some of the worst impacts of climate change. But there is one really big thing that no one can engineer around, and that is the attachment of the human heart to our home.
Home is more than our things or just a place. It protects those we love. It holds memories. Home is often our heart, but something is happening to our home. Earlier this year, homes on a beach near Boston were condemned and then demolished because of sea level rise. Similar harsh realities are unfolding in New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Louisiana, South Florida, California, and even far from the coasts, chronic flooding, droughts, heat waves, and devastating wildfires destroy homes and even entire towns. Oh, and at our southern border, the migrants seeking a new life in America, a lot of them are coming here to escape climate change, which is magnifying the effect of hurricanes and famine back at their home. A National Intelligence Council report from early April predicts it's all only gonna get worse, amplified by global political instability, an avalanche of climate refugees, and even impacts on America's military readiness.
This is a lot to take in. Our country and our world, they're gonna look a lot different than they do today. And that'll probably happen faster than any of us are ready for. I mean, the changes are already in the news, but it can be difficult to see the big picture if you're not looking for the patterns. And that's what I hope this story helps with, as unsettling as that might be, because we just can't keep ignoring the truth about what is already happening.
Climate migration is ongoing now. This isn't just a future theory.
Jesse Keenan at Tulane University is one of the world's leading experts on what's known as climate migration.
And by the way, we're already seeing this in Arizona. So there's a lot of people that are leaving southern Arizona and they're crowding out the real estate and housing markets in northern Arizona where it's much cooler in the mountains. This is my idea of climate gentrification, right? And in that process, people who are there get crowded out because rents go up, housing prices go up, et cetera, et cetera.
And this climate gentrification, just to be clear, it's going to happen in part because there are places in America where we just can't live anymore. Neighborhoods or entire cities.
These places already exist. We already have a pretty good idea of where these places are, particularly in many places in coastal America. We will not be able to live in these places. We have built to the edge of abyss in many places in this country.
So what does that look like? Well, there are an increasing number of models and studies and projections of how many Americans move and where they move. And while no one has a crystal ball, there are some striking similarities among the predictions. With sea level rise accelerating, millions of Americans will seek higher ground. In Florida, Orlando's population explodes as millions escape Florida's coasts, some moving to Atlanta or Dallas or Austin. Those same cities will also become home for hundreds of thousands leaving New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. In the Northeast, Americans trade the Atlantic coast for the freshwater coasts of the Great Lakes, leaving behind Boston and New York, creating a renaissance for Rust Belt cities like Buffalo, Cleveland, and Detroit. And far from the coasts, Americans face catastrophic floods along the Mississippi River, devastating drought in the Great Plains, and that forces millions toward Chicago, Minneapolis, and Denver. Out west, it's massive wildfires, drought, and prolonged heat waves. Those factors could make Sacramento, and even more likely, Seattle, the cities of choice. So it is possible that before the end of this century, Miami becomes a ghost town, and New York and LA are no longer America's biggest cities. By then, it could be Chicago and Seattle.
The other sort of worst case scenario here is that there's people who simply don't have the means to leave, particularly the elderly and those with lesser means, and they become trapped. And they become trapped in very high risky places, which, by the way, no longer have much of a tax base or an economic base to support the social services for many of these people.
So this gets complicated quickly and expensive, with soaring numbers of people living on the street because they can't pay rent. And then there's those with a home or an apartment. They start wondering how they can buy insurance. Oh, and consider that the cost of disasters linked to climate change has been skyrocketing over the last decade. That has been making insurance more and more expensive.
That probably means a lot of people won't be able to afford property insurance. So what happens then? Because you have a mortgage, but you can't afford property insurance anymore. What do you do?
This is a big problem. Ultimately, what we're looking at from the perspective of consumers is that insurance is likely to become a product for the rich. You have to give people some opportunity to understand that if they don't move away from the area, the government and insurers are not going to be there.
So let that sink in. Your house gets destroyed, your entire life savings, and there's no insurance, and there's no help from the government either. You're what, homeless overnight? And it's not just PhDs at universities that are saying that, insurance companies are too.
Individuals and communities that are relying entirely on public disaster aid are going to suffer the greatest in the wake of a disaster.
Samantha Medlock has a resume ranging from an executive with insurance giant Willis Towers Watson,
affordable clean energy and new jobs,
to an environmental advisor to President Obama.
I think people have this expectation that, like, well, this is my house, this is my community, and no matter what, like, we will rebuild. Like, you hear that all the time in the wake of disasters.
We're going to rebuild, Joplin.
We'll rebuild. We'll definitely rebuild.
Oh yeah, but that's maybe not always the right response. Is that sort of where we're getting to?
Indeed. Yeah. And is that really the best use of federal taxpayer investment? Wouldn't it make more sense to focus on getting out ahead of the disaster? That's not what federal disaster aid was designed to do, and that's not how it's playing out for communities in the wake of these big storms.
Think of the Camp Fire, wiping the town of Paradise, California off the map.
You're gonna be all right.
As levees like these were breached today,
or Hurricane Katrina, forcing 1.5 million from their homes, 600,000 of them never came back. That is climate migration in America. It has been happening, but to better understand what will happen next, I went to Boulder, to the National Center for Atmospheric Research, to talk with James Doan.
A new horizon of climate science is to understand connected high-impact weather events, so events that can come in groups that we've never seen before. So like 2 hurricanes hitting the same location in 2 consecutive weeks that then may trigger flash floods over burn scars and this kind of thing.
So essentially weather phenomena that we don't even have a name for right now.
That's exactly. So unique combinations of heat waves, flash floods that we've never seen in sort of close succession. We don't know what the impacts are.
That's a really important shift, that for humans to no longer be able to look at the past as an indicator of what tomorrow might be like. I mean, that's a huge shift in the way we just approach the world.
So, it's like driving the car, looking in a rearview mirror. You don't know what's coming up. These events are now happening in a world where there's more of us, a higher proportion of us live on vulnerable coastlines, say of California or Florida. And so we really live in a new era of climate risks that we haven't really tested before.
And those tests will only get tougher, more deadly, if we don't start taking action now. The difficult truth is that more and more places across America just won't be places where we can live anymore. And that's why we all need to start having conversations that we'd probably rather avoid. Conversations we have been avoiding. Conversations about where we call home.
And help folks understand you may be the last member of your family to occupy the old homestead.
And in our lifetimes, there will be great despair and great loss of life and great loss of wealth that will come with climate change. The real question is, those of lesser means, particularly in a society with growing inequality, how do they adapt? How can they afford to adapt? How can they even afford to move somewhere else to start a new life? That's the challenge ahead. And we have to make a decision about what we want to protect and what we want to let go.
And this is one of those places where those conversations are already underway. This cliff collapsed about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and you can see they've already done a lot of work to try to shore things up to prevent any further collapse. But as we move back, you'll see a second sort of orange fence up there. Just on the other side of that fence is an Amtrak and commuter rail line that before the pandemic was carrying 4 million people a year. And then just beyond that, you see roofs and chimneys. People also live up there, so eventually homes could be threatened. But it's not just houses. A few miles up the beach this way, a year and a half ago, 3 people were just lying in the sand, sunbathing, when a cliff collapsed on top of them and killed all 3. That was in late 2019. And then on New Year's Eve this year, so just a few months ago, a couple miles down the beach in this direction, another cliff collapse happened. This is happening all up and down the West Coast. And scientists are trying to figure out exactly, precisely what triggers these cliff collapses, this coastal erosion. So yesterday, I caught up with one of the scientists who's working to figure out what's impacting these beaches.
Cliffs meeting the ocean makes the West Coast stunning, but that combination is also delicate.
This stuff is weak, so it just crumbles and comes off, and this is just weathering processes. And so the fact that this is here means this cobble berm's actually been pretty effective over the last few months, probably, as far as preventing wave action. And so again, that's one of the things we're trying to understand.
Adam Young and his team at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography are working to understand precisely the tipping point, or rather the crumbling point, for cliffs along the Pacific. Coastal erosion, made worse by sea level rise, puts an increasing number of people, their homes, and a busy rail line all at risk.
It's definitely, in some areas, it's a significant problem, and we're going to expect these problems to increase as we go forward in time. Trying to understand currently what's happening is going to help us much better understand how to predict the future. So that's where my research is aimed at right now.
Specifically, the Scripps team attached electronic trackers to rocks added here to protect these cliffs. Then they follow the rock's movement, measure erosion, and eventually they hope to be able to determine exactly how many waves will move a single centimeter of dirt or rock, so that we can then use that kind of information to make decisions about which parts of the coast we can actually protect.
In some areas, they will, try to. We can stop erosion with coastal engineering if we want to. So in some areas, that's an option. In other areas, we may want to step away from the coast and let things happen naturally.
So there are 2 perspectives here. One of them is that, yes, this is already happening, and you can sort of have that doom and gloom perspective. Or the other, I think more important perspective here is that we actually have a big opportunity in front of us. There is still time to take action while this is just, a cliff that's threatening a train tracks and not an entire city. But we do have to act quickly if we're going to offset most of the worst effects of climate change. Now stay with us, because after the break, we're going to go back to the East Coast and check in with Tabitha one more time.
Want payday to come a little faster?
I get paid 2 days before everyone else. I love getting paid on a Wednesday.
Want to say goodbye to those long check cashing lines?
I can never see myself standing in a line at a bank again.
Get your own NetSpend prepaid MasterCard with direct deposit. Your money loads straight into your NetSpend card. Shop online, pay bills, buy groceries. Use anywhere debit MasterCard is accepted.
I use it every day for every purchase. I use it to pay my rent.
It's not a credit card. It's convenient, and you can even earn payback rewards on many of your purchases. That's money right back into your card account.
From eating at major restaurants to sending my mom flowers, I get cash back.
Because this is not a credit card, with NetSpend you pay no interest fees, late fees, or activation fees. There's no credit check to get started and no cost to order.
I use my NetSpend card for everything.
Be one of the first 200 callers and choose your card caller. 1-800-614-9148. That's 1-800-614-9148. Get paid up to 2 days faster with NetSpend.
And again, we are here at Rainbow Reef, but this time we are topside. We have spent the last hour sharing with you the importance of this planet and how you can give back. These reefs that are just about 20 feet below our boat, they need our help. They provide 500 million people with so much, whether it be tourism, whether it be fishing, or simply protecting our coastlines. Did you know that $3.5 billion of our economy comes from just our reefs? And as I said at the top of the show, every 1, 2, 3rd breath that you take comes from our oceans. We are all so passionate about this planet and about our oceans, and that's why we have spent this time with you, telling you more and more about the actions that you take and how they can make a difference. So as we said, some simple things. Just try and reduce your plastic use. You can call your local legislators, tell them about marine protected areas and maybe to put limits on fishing. And also, take some time to talk to your friends, learn a little bit about what they think about this planet, and talk to them about what you've learned here today as well, because that's all we can do is share our stories and make sure as many people as possible know that they can make a difference. Thank you for taking the time to join us here on NBCLX. I'm Tabitha Lipkin, live in Miami, and the truth is, while I do like being up on the boat talking to you guys, I want to be back in that ocean because I love it so much, and I hope you guys do too. So I'm going to jump in. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been wonderful. This has been a true honor, and I'll see you guys back in Dallas soon. Whoop. Take this guy off. You want to take it, don't you?
A lot can happen with a simple tell your story. Get people excited. To get connected, to share, and sell anywhere, and start making a different future. Start different at GoDaddy.com.
My last financial advisor? Chip. Computer chip. So now I've got a real life person helping me. Now I've got personal capital.
Talk to an advisor about a personalized portfolio. Personal Capital.
Mack Weldon is reinventing men's basics, and it all starts with more comfortable underwear. That means underwear made with soft, breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics, targeted cool zones, waistbands that won't roll over, and legs that won't ride up. We're confident our underwear is more comfortable than what you've got on right now. So confident, in fact, that we came up with this guarantee. If you don't love your first pair, it's on us. Try a pair at MackWeldon.com.
We've all got something in our closet we can sell. Jeans you don't love? Sneakers not your style anymore? Jacket that's just not your color? Well, on Poshmark, you can put them up for sale in seconds. Just take a photo, set your price, and turn your closet into cash. Buy and sell from home with a Poshmark app.
At Southern New Hampshire University, we're committed to making college more accessible.
by making it more affordable. That's why we're keeping our tuition the same through the year 2021.
I knew SNHU was the place for me when I saw how affordable it was. I ran to my husband with my computer and I said, look, we can do this.
Take advantage of some of the lowest online tuition rates in the nation. Find your degree at snhu.edu.
GoToBank, the ultimate banking app. Easy to use and no monthly fees with direct deposit. You can even get paid up to 2 days early. It's mobile banking at its best. Open an account at gotobank.com.
Facing the most explosive conditions they've ever seen.
The oceans and ice are in trouble, and if they're in trouble, we're in trouble.
Now to a dire warning about climate change.
The record high temperatures in Siberia would be impossible without man-made global warming.
Urgent warnings of a severe threat to America's health and economy.
In an underwater paradise, a plastic nightmare.
In 3 out of the last 6 years, we've burned more than 10 million acres, which in the last 30 years, that's the first time that we've hit the 10 million acre mark.
When you think about the scale of that challenge and all that it requires, rebuilding the entire electricity grid, getting every fossil fuel driven car off the road, so we have to change all of these things.
The answer is no. We're not going to get to zero carbon society in the next 30 years.
Offsetting is definitely not the answer. I think sometimes we think of offsetting as trying to alleviate your guilt a little bit, like, oh, let me just pay over here and they'll offset, and then now I can pollute as much as I want. And that's really, really not the point. Like, the most important thing is to reduce how much we're actually, emitting and putting out into the atmosphere, rather than just sort of trying to write a check after the fact.
Change is hard, but change is good. And it just requires that first small step, and just take baby steps.
We have a shared responsibility for the resources we have been gifted with in this country.
It's very important that we continue to strive to be better. We can never become complacent. What we're doing today is great, but there's always room for improvement, always.
Happy Thursday, April 22nd, aka Earth Day. I'm JoBeth DeVera, and it's a good thing you are tuned into NBCLX right now, because we have an amazing show planned out for you. We are talking all things Earth and climate today. And yes, these are topics we've been committed to reporting on for you, but today it's going to be a little bit different, starting with something simple like where I am standing in our virtual beach. And if you haven't noticed, yes, I took my shoes off. I'm barefoot because I am playing the part, baby. But of course, the only way to have a better view is to actually be near a real beach. And that is where I am bringing in my girl, Tabitha Lipkin, who is joining us from Miami, Florida. Tabs, what's up? I'm a bit jealous you're there and I'm here, but hey, you know what? I'm excited about what you got to tell us. So what's going on?
Happy Earth Day, JoBeth. You know what? In solidarity, I'm gonna take these shoes off.
Yeah, girl.
I'm gonna be barefoot too. Yes, we are talking about our favorite place in the entire world, JoBeth. You and I absolutely love the oceans, and what an honor to get to talk about it this Earth Day. But I certainly cannot talk about it alone. And I cannot talk about it without talking about one of the most important parts of our oceans. That is coral reefs. So I am bringing in Carly Dennison, who is a second-year PhD student. Carly, you study corals. Now, my first question for you is, what is happening to our corals and why do they need help?
That's a great question. So essentially, corals have a really tight-knit relationship with these small algae, and the algae are actually providing a lot of their food and nutrition. And global climate change has increased sea surface temperatures enough that this relationship is actually being tested. And so corals are disassociating with these algae that are providing them all their food, and that's when we get major coral bleaching events. And it is really devastating to reefs, especially like the reefs here in Miami.
So what's interesting about the reefs here in Miami is